I call this meeting of the Northeast Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The time is 5:32. Item 2, closed session. The board will now go into closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.074, 551.082, and 551.0821. Oh, I'm sorry. The board will now reconvene into open session, and the time is 7:05. Item 4, possible action regarding Level 4 FNG parent-student grievance. Do I have a motion regarding the grievance?
Madam President, I'd like to move to uphold the Level 3 decision, including remedies previously granted, and direct administration to provide documentation to the parents regarding all training being provided to staff.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. And we have one recusal. Thank you for being here. And now the board will adjourn item 5, closed session. A, consultation with board's attorney regarding filing board vacancy in single member District 2 pursuant to Government Code Section 551.071. And the time is 7:06. Okay, the board will now reconvene into open session, and the time is 7:17. Item A, discussion and possible action regarding process for filing board vacancy in single member District 2. We had someone sign up to speak. At this time, the board will receive comments from those individuals who signed up to speak to the specific agenda item. Speakers will be called up to speak in the order in which they appear on the sign-in sheet and to the item that they signed up to speak to. Speakers should limit their comments to the specific agenda item for which they signed up. Please remember that this is a business meeting of the board. Any person or group engaging in outbursts of any kind causing a disruption to the meeting will be warned, and if they persist, will be removed from the meeting. This is to ensure that all speakers have an opportunity to make comments without interruption, and that the board members are able to pay full attention to speakers without any distractions. Ms. Huey.
Number 1.
Good evening. My name is D.H. Patillo. I am a lifelong NEISD resident. I'm also a graduate of Roosevelt High School. Terry Williams was my friend, my director at UTSA, and my board trustee. And I wanted to be here when I saw on the agenda that there was some discussion of the possibility of filling her seat. I want to express my desire that great deliberation is taken in this effort to ensure that the Roosevelt cluster continues to be well represented in supporting the actions that she had started. I know that Terry was very, very committed to the students of the Roosevelt cluster. She was really conscientious of what their need areas were in terms of learning gaps and supporting teachers. And I want to make sure that there is great deliberation. I was a little bit concerned when I saw on the website that that position might be filled by appointment, and I'm not familiar with how that process works. As a resident of the community, while I don't currently have school-age children, but my children were all NEISD students, I care deeply about my community, my neighborhood, the Roosevelt cluster, and I want to make sure that they are well represented. I know that an election would normally be coming up in May, but I just want to be here and present to say that I want to watch these proceedings and understand what is going to happen to this position, because Terry cared about it very, very deeply. I thought she was a wonderful representative of the Roosevelt cluster. And I think that it's really, really important that we be aware of the needs and interests of the constituents who duly elected her, and the efforts that they clearly wanted her or someone in her position to make on behalf of those students. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a few options for filling this vacancy. We can do an appointment, or there's also the option of a special election. And I will just, for those new to the board, since I've been on the board, we've actually had 3 vacancies that we have filled in the past, and it has all been by appointment. And what we did was we took applications, and then we brought people in to do interviews. And this last time in September of 19, when we had that vacancy, we had applications, we did interviews, and then we opened the applications again because we didn't feel like we had gotten a lot of people apply. And then we did interviews, then we brought them back for a second interview. And then, so the vacancy was September 25th of 19, and then we voted in that new trustee 11 of 11. So it took about, 6 weeks to do that. I would suggest that if we wanted to look at appointments, I think what happened the last time is we had the first the first application window was only like 3 days, and then we brought in interviews, and then when we opened it up, we did it for 5 days. So I think if we do an application process, we need to be make sure we have it open for at least 5 days. I think that's kind of a standard for some postings maybe in the district. But
how do we communicate those openings? How does the public know?
so I know we did a Facebook post, and I don't remember how we did. Ms. Chancellor, do you remember how we did all of that?
Once the board decided, I believe we posted that on our website and then also added that to the social media so that the community would be aware so more people could apply if they wanted to.
Would we consider a longer time frame than the 5 days to give more opportunity to have sufficient?
I think we can set that time.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, no, the other question was a possibility of a November special election, which would cost the district, but we did not get any pricing costs. And I don't know, Dr. Micah, if we were to call it special, because obviously the seat belongs to the voters of SMD2, do we know what that price would be, ballpark? No.
Mr. Hellier, I can't tell you that ballpark tonight, but I can get it for you.
Okay. No, because I was, to your point, Mr. Green, I looked at the last 3 appointments. Ms. Wolf was August of 29, interviews 7 days later, sworn in on the day 24. Mr. Byer obviously was after Mr. Wheat left. I think day 23 interviewed, day 30, and then the longest one was with most recently Mr. Leos from September to November, which was 48 days. So I want to make sure we get that voice heard as expressed. So we can do that application process. The other option we could consider is the voters did speak last May, It was a very close vote, 75 votes difference. We could talk to the second place candidate and see if she's still interested because,
Well, wouldn't that be like an appointment then at that point? I mean,
well, it could
that's
be,
basically
but
what that would
it could be an
It's
appointment,
not a-
but
It's not an
we're-
election at that point.
we could do that, but obviously respecting the voice of them, they obviously, the voters voted a year ago, but that would be an option, or we could do the application window and set it for a week or whatever we deem appropriate, and then we've got a couple meetings coming up to do the interviews, and then hopefully have the single member District 2 voice heard here sooner than later if we're going to wait till the May special.
For the special election option, I don't know if Mr. Lopez, you want to run through that with everybody?
That's good.
And explain that, probably. I know Ms. Corona has explained sort of the application appointment process, just so we can hear how all that would work and the different options, because I know it's not just, it's not just one option with an election, it's
Right,
multiple
right.
avenues.
So first of all, I just wanted to make sure for those present, for the commenter today, that if a person is appointed, then that person would need to run in May of 2024, which will be the next scheduled trustee election. And that person would be running to fill the remainder of Ms. Williams's unexpired term. So just wanted to make that clear for everybody present. As far as the special election, that's the other process. If the board were to call a special election, whether for November or if it has to go into May of 2024, that also, whoever is elected under either of those would have to again run, or is only going to fill the unexpired portion of Ms. Williams's term. So that person would need to run again in May of 2026, which is when I think her seat would have come back open again.
But was your question, Mr. Byer, timeline, like
Well,
September?
yeah, the timeline with, so if we call if a special election is called for November.
So if the
let's say,
special election is
that
going to be,
even possible at this point?
yes, sir, that would be the drop dead day for you all to order that election would be 46 days prior to election day, which is September the 22nd.
And then once, if that election were to occur, say it again, as far as that person then would fill, from that election forward, when's the next time that they would then have to be reelected?
Run again, May of
May of
2026.
2026, okay.
Yes, sir.
So then the other option is, if the seat is not filled, the next available general election would be May 2024,
That is correct.
and then that person would then have to run.
Yes, sir.
and-
Yeah, because either
26 as
election
well.
period, they're only running to fill that unexpired portion of the current term.
And the timeframe we have to fill the vacancy is 180 days. That's not, if my
Yes.
understanding is correct.
Yes.
And I know that there's also an opinion that's out there that if it's not filled within 180 days, then it gets kicked to the next general
That's correct.
election. Right. Okay.
Yes.
My concern is the fact that because of the situation that we were in, the SMD2 district was not represented for months, and that was no fault of anybody. It was just, a series of really devastating circumstances. But I agree with Mr. Hilliard in the fact that that last election was so narrow, the margin was so narrow, that it seems to me that, like, for example, a beauty pageant, you have the second runner-up. Essentially, that was such a close call. It seems to me that that would be the most logical person to put in that seat if she's still interested, because of the very fact that the voters did speak. And this is a position that the voters have that voice, and it was so close that it was pretty clear. And another thing, I have heard through people that that's what they want. So I would,
What people have you heard?
I've just heard through community members over from that district that is in fact what they want, is they want her in that seat. So,
Am I allowed to ask the community member here to come up and speak to that? I mean, she may not want that. She may want it. I don't know. To me, my contention is that gets into an appointment, so she can apply just like everybody else. So if we want to go that route, just because she got runner-up in an election, last time doesn't necessarily mean that she would be runner-up this time as well. So there might be somebody else out there that wants to run. And so I'm not comfortable just handing it over to somebody because they got second place, whenever that was, over a year ago. I think either we need to sort of pick a lane, either go the appointment route or go a special election route, and not now create a sort of secondary gray area where we're suggesting that just because somebody ran and came in second last time that they're the person that should be sitting in that seat. I mean, our job is going to be, until that seat is filled, we've got to figure this out with the six of us. Just because Ms. Williams is no longer here, we have to work and figure this out together. And I don't necessarily want to rush through something and just give somebody a seat or do a hasty special election just because it makes our life a little bit more difficult, and I think we can help shoulder the load to make sure that Roosevelt cluster is being represented.
Well, and
But not rush into something just because we had a runner-up, or just because we're trying to rush through and get to a special election that might cost additional money, that might not give some people enough time to that might be considering that, to file, get on the ballot, and really think about representing that cluster the way it needs to be represented. So that's
So
my thought.
if I hear you, Mr. Byer, you're saying, if you're saying is we should do the 5 to 7 day application window, do the interview, and then we make a determination, is that kind of where I hear you leaning?
I'm more apt to go that route
Okay.
this fall than I am to try to hastily put together election by November.
Okay?
And my other thought is that although they wouldn't be represented, that we are close enough, not close enough, but that we would have to try to, as a group, as a team of 6, work through things like shack appointments for the Roosevelt cluster and try to vote on those things and work on those things together while we do in my opinion, the correct process of either getting an appointment or waiting till the May election.
Okay, I would offer we should not leave that seat open until next May. That's silencing 60,000 constituents. So I think if we're going to go to the appointment process, we should move consistent with what's been done the last 3 times, where it was done in 24, 30, and the longest was day 55 for the sworn in. So we do a week-long appointment process, application process, interview, and then hopefully in September sometime we can make a decision, which would be putting us at the same as the most recent one with Mr. Leos when he was appointed. And that would be a consistent timeline. But to leave it months and months, I think is disservice to single-member District 2 voices.
Sure.
While we have a general idea, I grew up there. I mean, for 40 years, that's where I went to school, and until my mom passed away, that is what I consider my community. But I also don't want to presume to speak for their voices.
Sure.
That's their seat, and so we should at least make sure that we get them a voice sooner than later, in my opinion, in a reasonable timeline. It can be very structured, but I don't think this needs to drag out for months and months either. I think that's a disservice to them.
And I tend to agree with that. I guess I'm on the record as saying I would rather go the appointment route than try to throw together a hasty November election.
And there's also there's cost with it too.
There's cost with that. I think that gets, again, in my opinion, that gets to be a little bit sloppy, and we could miss people that might be considering that particular position. And I want to make sure that we would give people, an appointment would give everybody that's interested in that position, which again makes our work a little more difficult because we've got time and effort that we've got to spend to try to figure this out as a team of 6.
To
And so,
interview.
And I think
Interview.
for, on the point of the election, not just from our perspective, but from the potential candidate, that's a lot to put together in a short couple of months, to get out there and campaign and do justice for the district as well. But on what you were saying, Mr. Hilliard, 7 days, I would be more inclined to say 10.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at a calendar right now. That's why my phone is out. So today's the 21st. If we we have an application form that we've used in the past, so that would be pretty easy, I think, to get that up and out. When do you think we could get an application posted and out?
We can have it out tomorrow. I mean, if you're not making any changes to the form that you previously used, then I don't see any reason we cannot get it posted sometime early tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, and so then and 10 days would be like 10 calendar days. not
Is that-
10
Friday, September 1st, that would be 2 full weeks, starting from today. That'd be all of this week and all of
Could we
next
look
week.
at maybe shortening that just a little
We
bit
could.
because we do have a great process in place because we've done it in the past, and sadly, I think there's a lot of people that are aware of this situation, and this is already being watched. I think if we have people who are interested, that they're going to be applying immediately.
Do we want to do
And
Friday
if we do, like, maybe next Monday is the cutoff. We have a meeting that night, so if we need to put something on the agenda for the 28th to discuss setting up interviews and things like that, we could discuss it then.
Well, I would think if
That
we,
gives
if
us a
that's our
week,
last
basically.
day, I don't know that we could put that on the agenda. I mean, I think we
Okay.
would know how many applications we have, and maybe we could determine the next steps for dates to
Or
do
set a special
interviews.
just for interviews a couple days
Yeah,
later.
and that's what
But I
we
think
will-
it's good to have an agenda item, just so then that we have the ability to act and say,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to do interviews, special meeting on whatever it might be.
And the issue of the awarding the runner-up type of thing, I would have a problem with that, only because, and this is not the case now, but in the past, we have had a couple of elections where if the runner-up had to step up to take a seat, it would not have been in the best interests of the district. I'm thinking of
Okay,
Well,
well,
we just-
so
we-
we're
we
gonna.
need to stick
We're
with
not
the
going to
voting.
get into that.
Yeah.
It's,
So-
let's, yeah.
All right,
Who
so
will-
and
first
I
of all, do I,
personally-
so,
I'll make a
Can I-
motion.
Can I ask a question before we make any motions? Who will we all be able to interview
oh,
this
yes.
person?
Oh, yeah.
It's a special board meeting where
A
we're
special
all
board
there, and the
Okay.
candidate comes in. And I think last time they were 30-minute interviews.
I don't think it
At
was that long,
least.
but
Or 20 minutes.
20
Maybe it was
minutes, and
20
we have a
minutes.
set of questions that are
That we asked the same question, and
of every person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And obviously, for the newer trustees that have not been through this process, we could see a copy of that.
We can
too,
review that
in the near term,
process.
just so we have an idea.
right.
The interview process is we take all the applications. If we have a great number of applications, we may narrow it down to just the people that we feel would be suitable for the position.
Who makes
again,
that determination?
The board.
We as a board.
We as a board.
Okay.
We can, if there's 50 applications and we want to narrow it down to 10, we'll choose the 10 that we want.
But yeah,
I'm
it's-
exaggerating the numbers, but you understand where I'm going for.
We will talk as a board
We talk
corporate
as a- yes.
to make.
And then we
the-
will set up the questions, and we will all.
And it's in closed session.
Okay.
To discuss
Every
So, yeah,
candidate
we're-
is asked the
we're
same
all
questions
together.
in the same amount of time.
So
Okay.
Monday, the 28th, is what I think you were saying, Mrs. Huey, for
To end the
application
applications.
window.
So if they go out tomorrow,
And then we'd have an agenda item to discuss possible special and interview timelines as well.
I'd just rather get things going.
Well, I
and
agree, that would put us in a
sadly,
position.
I believe that,
It would give us a couple weeks until the 11th of September to get through the process, which is the
Yes.
next regular meeting. So hopefully we would have the ability to get through the process to get their voice heard.
okay, so do I have a motion to, do I have a motion?
I'll make it. I move to accept applications for the single member two vacancy until Monday, the 28th of August, and then interview potential candidates and vote at the appropriate time to include an agenda item on the 28th to further discuss this item.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Madam President, may I just ask a
Yes.
quick question? When do you want that application window to end?
5 o'clock on the 28th.
Thank you. That's what I need to know. Okay, so I will send you all an email tomorrow or a text stating to you that it is live and active, and then we will end that application at 5 p.m. on the 28th.
So we'll know by the time we.
Yes, sir.
had no
I just,
applicants.
that's what I
that's
want to
good.
be
It's-
really clear on when it ends.
That's fine.
Okay?
I think
All
that's
right.
very good.
Are y'all okay with that? I just
I-
said that, but
I think it's reasonable because that way it gives.
into
the-
business.
Yeah. I think it's
Right.
reasonable.
I'm sorry?
As I say, keep it 5 PM.
Yeah, okay.
4:59 PM, 5 PM.
5.
Okay, next, where's my agenda? Next item is 6, new business for possible board action. A, consent. 1, appointment of board member representative to School Health Advisory Council. I would like to pull this item from consent. Do I have to make a motion to pull the item from consent? I'm not used to it being just one thing.
You've asked
good
for
question.
people, that's it.
Okay. And I apologize, I can't find my papers. The reason I'm pulling it is because we got an email about the community members that are parents. Did y'all all see that email?
Madam President, this agenda item is only about the appointment of a board member, so I don't know if that we can legally talk about it, just because that's a specific consent item. It's not just about SHAC membership, it's about the board member appointment from
Specific to the board
previous.
member.
I just make
Okay.
sure we're in legal compliance. That's the only reason we all did get I got the emails, so I know what you're talking about, but since it says board member representative, it's not talking about the general SHAC list, we might not be able to talk about that this meeting. We have to wait till next week.
That's probably true. Okay, so, never mind, I'm not pulling the agenda item. Do I have a motion to approve consent?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Okay. Item 8, adjournment, 7:40. Thank you.